G'day, guys. Good to see yous. Yeah, just came over from the Char and Bart K sort of live stream, so that was pretty good. Char's always good value, and her insights into the vagoonerized community is always interesting. Yes, pretty much wearing the same stuff that I was wearing last night. I just got up, I looked at, I've been following sort of Bart's sort of streams and then trying to sort out all my bloody laundry, and then I'll have a shower and I'll sort myself out after this stream. So yeah, this is what Harry looks like when he gets out of bed. A bit on the feral side. Yeah, and this bloody hair, because I haven't actually brushed it back, is, see how it fucking grows? Just grows and never stops growing. It's the only problem with carnivore diet, especially eggs that have got a lot of bite, and meat and eggs just grow too much. Even though some of my relatives, as I've shown you genetics, are losing their hair. I noticed that vagoonerized guy having judo, whatever, could have been even Mick the Vegan or some prick like that. But the sort of nonsense there, and I mean, if you've got multiple generations, like a Pottinger's cat, if you've got multiple generations where certain genes have been turned off or on, you will get baldness from a very early age. If you've got susceptibility, which is what I've got, that won't happen. But you will notice it in relatives of mine that basically, I've definitely got genetics that actually make my hair go grey. That's one thing I can't get. That's quite pronounced. Mum went in her 30s, and most of my relatives have gone in their 30s as well. I'm probably the only one that hasn't really gone that's actually been able to hold off. I'm not claiming that the carnivore diet or the low carb diet in the last 10 years have done that, but looking at my other relatives, I'm doing much better in that department. Thank you very much. And also in the hair density and thickness that keeps damn growing and costing me too much money in terms of haircuts. But anyway, the bonus is I don't have their thinning hair and their alopecia issues in my other family members. Anyway, let's move on. G'day, Kitty. Yes, always good to see you here. Dirty paws on the chat first before everyone else. You're lucky it's StreamYard and it's not Restream, because Restream just obliterates everything and it just grabs when it goes live, which is annoying. I hope they fix that, because it is really annoying when that happens. I just lose all this sort of stuff. Devox, good to see you. Oh, trouble. Always a pleasure to see you here. 30 minutes late as usual. I may be asleep very soon. Actually, I had a long session last night. It went longer than I actually expected to go. That wasn't my plan, obviously, but it just sort of extended way beyond that certain point. And this 55-year-old or nearly 55-year-old, still got a bit of let's say energy in that regard. So I'm sounding like someone else, but yes, I can go on for hours and hours. I mean, in the past, I used to, even my productivity at work is fantastic. That's one thing about carnivore diets. They should be employing people with a carnivore diet, because we've got far more energy and we're much better at working, and keep working, where most everybody else is sort of falling apart. And if they're not getting their sugar hit, they're sort of snorting their sugar addiction. They're basically, yawning, passing out, or like Vegan Gains. He does it on a regular basis. Sugar comatose, passes out, shits himself. Doesn't he have any self-respect? God almighty. What can you say about some of these characters? Sorry, I was out for... Oh, look, doesn't matter. You can always watch it. You can always watch it after. As I said, you still got to live your lives, guys, and you still got to enjoy those aspects. YouTube will always be here. You can always come back and watch this sort of stuff at your leisurely time. The most important thing I promote amongst people and my subscribers also is enjoy your life, enjoy your family life. Social life and family life are the greatest treasures that we've got. It goes right back to our ancestral roots when we sat around a campfire and just talked amongst ourselves. So very valuable and should not be neglected. It's what actually makes us unhappy. Happiness does not come from money. Happiness does not come from, sort of kudos or any of this sort of stuff. It actually comes from relationships, good relationships. So put the effort into those and cultivate them. G'day, Cheryl. And she's a great bombshell. Richard, good to see you, mate. Yes, we're on the late shift today. Yeah, Bart sent me a message and said, "Oh, we're going to overlap," and I said that's okay. And I said I'll just put it a bit further ahead, bit extra effort, but had to change all my descriptors. But I've actually now changed the descriptor, so I've always got it. And I've saved that off, so I can always use it. And I'll probably need to change it anyway, because once we get into daylight savings and all that sort of stuff, it sort of changes in that regard. But, in trouble. Was pretty shit. What was pretty shit? Not with you. It was a lovely urinary day. Oh, I'm happy for you. You're an animal. Bruce, good to see you, mate. Yes, you're welcome. Good to have you here, mate. We're a pretty easygoing, fun crowd. We take it easy. We don't take things too serious in that regard. So Robert, always a pleasure, mate. Always a pleasure to see you here. God almighty. You're a troll, are you? Mate, there's no studies anywhere in the world that actually shows, epidemiological studies that actually shows any association of any caliber that actually supports any inference. Have you looked at the studies, or are you just avoiding actually investigating this sort of stuff? Do you like living in lies and deceits and ignorance? You may, but if you look at all the epidemiological data, when you actually talk to an epidemiologist, they say at a minimum you need an odds ratio of 6 to 10. That means the strength of the actual inference that something is causal or something is doing something, because there are strong associations between things like ice cream sales and shark attacks in summer, but that's not causal. There's a statistical relationship, but that's all it is. You've got to be aware of those sort of things. And now when we're looking at other things like tobacco, it had to be between an odds ratio of 10 to 30. That is thousands of percent of order. When you actually go from 1 to 1.5 or 1.7 or 117, like for processed meat in some studies, that's 17%. That's not even an odds ratio of 2. Okay, so 1.17 is not 2, and 2 is the bare minimum to even generate a hypothesis. That means even to say, maybe there something, to just ask the question. That's a hypothesis generation. To actually even to consider a possible inference, you've got to be between 6 and 10. And to really be able to show a dose dependent, like the Bradford Hill criteria, who basically was the person that researched tobacco. And he actually showed that something has to go, when you increase something, it goes up. And when you decrease something, it goes down. It's one of his criteria. You have to fulfill all these criteria. If you don't fulfill these criteria, it's a bust. And most of the studies don't. That is why they're junk science. And if you don't understand that, you're just ignorant of the Bradford Hill criteria and the approach. Even so, some of these academics who are more interested in tenures, and many of them, academia has been infiltrated by a lot of plant-based academics who are ideologically driven and not scientifically based, and are doing corrupt science for ideological reasons and not for the purity of science, the investigation purity. You're basically ignoring these fundamental facts. So something which is 1.17, and that's adjusted. It's not even the raw data. They've adjusted it and increased it artificially. A lot of this sort of stuff. And they use the auric value because the plants have certain antioxidants. So you don't get it. You're basically being deceived. If you don't understand that, either you basically want to be deceived, you want to live in ignorance, or you don't want to understand those things. And that's the fundamental difference between, a true scientist and empiricist and all that. You should check out a researcher out of Stanford University called Christopher Gartner. He's actually an academic who's a plant-based academic. He actually did a bit of research back in 2005. This is not epidemiology like food frequency questionnaires, which 90+% of research is, and gives those small odds ratio. He's actually a plant-based doctor who did a study called the A to Z study, which included Atkins, the zone diet, the nutritional diet, which is a sort of learned diet nowadays it's called, and also the Ornish diet, which is the plant-based diet. And they did it for a year. And these people it's a randomized controlled trial where they actually put them down and actually explain them. They give them the book, the original book. This is what you do. And they have a nutritionist explain to the different randomized groups. Well, the group that actually had the best weight loss was the Atkins group. But also when they actually drilled in the information, he's actually on the Stanford University YouTube site, you will actually find the A to Z study. It's called the Battle of the Diets. And he actually has to admit that on inflammatory markers, on lipids, on all sorts of things, the Atkins diet was superior. Shit all over the Ornish diet. And Ornish gave him a lot of stick about that. And what, Chris put his tail between his legs and went back to his garlic studies and a whole lot of other nonsense because he didn't want to do high quality research. These studies are not many. There's this one and the Israeli one, the direct study, which also shows the superiority of Atkins. When you increase animal foods, you get better results. And why wouldn't that be the case? When you look at the archaeological evidence, the N15 isotope analysis, in particular, the stuff that comes out of the Max Planck Institute in Leipzig, Germany, humans for millions and hundreds of thousands of years, all the hominins and all that, were super and hyper carnivores. That's what we're adapted to. I've actually got an isotope analysis of the ancient Greeks as well on this channel. You should go and check it out. You have to go right back to the early parts of my channel to find it. And it basically talks about those carnivorous Greeks. If you type in Harry Serpanos carnivorous Greeks, you will find that YouTube thing. And I actually show a study with isotope analysis of the ancient Greeks. And they primarily ate ruminant animals and a bit of coastal fish. So get your facts right, mate. Stop being ignorant. Learn what actually makes humans strong. The Okinawans basically have a saying. We start the day with pork and we finish the day with pork. They venerate pork. They've got these little statues of pork. You know, people just don't know the culture of these countries, and they just make up shit. They go there after the war where all the livestock is devastated from the war, like in Greece where it was all taken by the occupation forces. They don't understand this, and they see things and they think this is what people are eating. No, they were starvation foods. You've got to get your facts right. Learn. Stop being ignorant, because your health, you'll pay for it in the long run. You know, high deuterium foods will damage your mitochondria, and they'll zap your energy. And as you get older, you'll become more decrepit and less able to heal properly, and you will suffer for it, mate. So there's a couple of wise words from an older, 55-year-old that may help you avoid, major health problems in the long run. You can do both. Oh, yes, number one. Yes, mate. You continue thinking that. Insulin to glucagon, mate, is 1.3 when you eat meat. Very low insulin. Insulin is what drives hyperinsulinemia. If you combine sugar with meat, yes, then like a standard sad diet, McDonald's, yeah, it can shoot when you combine fructose, sugar, and starch plus a bit of meat, it can shoot the insulin to glucagon ratio 70. Very high insulin, very low. It's called the Randall cycle. You should check it out. Bart Kay does a lot of good videos on Randall cycle. I've discussed it quite a bit about the blockade at the cell level when you add excess amounts of refined shit in terms of sugar and oils. Yes. Could learn a lot. A lot of these people have, and they're better for it. Ah, yes, nothing like lamb chops. Yes, I love them. Actually had some pork chops yesterday. Oh, they were nice. Absolutely divine. Yes. Nah, nothing like the seed oils. And all these fake meats that the vegans are eating now are all full of seed oils. And if you noticed, when they were deteriorating, Char talks about the vegan deterioration and all these vegans consuming all this junk nowadays. But in the past, they were, the typical vegan used to basically, because they weren't engaging the Randall cycle, and they were basically, because the vegan diet, the traditional one, is more like a fasting mimicking diet. It basically is very low in calories, very hard to get sufficient calories in, very low in protein, and it basically is a wasting away. That's what it is. This is why they lose a lot of weight, is because, and then they hit a certain level where then they really waste away and get sarcopenic, lose muscle mass, lose bone mass, and really start getting, because of that level of deterioration. It's basically they're starving themselves to death. That's what it is. It's a fast gone forever or for too long, and let alone heavy in deuterium, because of the foods that they consume are very high in deuterium, which means that you're not providing sufficient protein, and without sufficient protein, the body can't generate enough enzymes to basically dehydrogenase or swap out of the citric cycle sufficient heavy isotope deuterium hydrogen ions out to replace them with your stock standard hydrogen ions. And as a consequence, the metabolic water gets contaminated with too much neutrons, and they damage the nanomotors in the end. And that seed oils are just double that of sugar nearly in terms of deuterium, in terms of the parts per million. It's just ridiculous. And that's what the processed stuff. So the food like sugar, the worst in deuterium in terms of plant foods is fruit. That's why I consider it the worst carbohydrate. And it basically literally damages the actual body severely. I had cardiovascular disease 10 years ago, and fibrosis and fibrotic lung and all that. And my animal-based diet reversed it all. So what are you fucking talking about? You cockwomble. You're an idiot. Completely ignorant. Go and learn something from somebody that really knows, rather than the idiotic remarks from a whole lot of charlatans. Yeah, probably. It's because of his vagoonerized diet. It's the Randall cycle. That's what caused it. It's when you actually combine a lot of sugar and fat together from seed oils and stuff like that. It's what causes it. If you go back in history, before seed oils were introduced in the early parts of the 20th century, there was no cardiovascular disease, and people consuming far more animal foods then. The French used to come to America and say, America is awash in butter. I mean, we think the French consume a lot of butter. No, the Americans back in the 19th century consumed double the butter that the French consumed. And not only that, they consumed lard. And from Cincinnati, which used to be the city that was called Pork Polis, the city of pork. They processed shitloads of pork and provided lard as cooking, oil fats for the entire eastern seaboard of the United States at the time. And at the time, cardiovascular disease, cancer, all these were unheard of. Then we introduced seed oils. And by 1930s, we had 3,000 people with cardiovascular disease. And that was the early days of, that these were, and it was primarily more affluent people because it was promoted amongst them as a cleaner, it doesn't smell type oil. And then through the Great Depression, it became cheap and widely available. So you had an exposure for 2 decades to this toxic shit. And by 1950s, we had 500,000. We went from 3,000 to 500,000. None of the other dietary things, there was no increase because we didn't have refrigeration. So there was only seasonal starch. There was only seasonal sugar at that part. The only thing that changed between the 30s and 50s was seed oils that was introduced. And cardiovascular disease went through the roof. They got it right that there was a fat involved, but it wasn't fats from animals. It was the fats from seeds that were oxidized and highly damaged through an industrial process. Well, that was the problem. These PUFAs that were highly rancid and highly oxidized. Well, that's what caused the problem. And the rest is history. And then we blamed the wrong thing, animal fats. And from there, it just tumbled, and we went from 2/3 animal foods and 1/3 plants to 2/3 plants and highly processed 1/3 animal foods. And I mean, even the milks now are not like the milks in the past. Now they're full of sugar and full of chocolate and all sorts of crap. Most of the dairy products and fruit and fructose and shit like that, engaging the Randall cycle even more. It's just processed crap. Well, I don't even classify it as animal foods. It's just animal foods mixed with a whole lot of garbage of seed oils and plants. And that's the modern diet, and that's why our health has gone to hell in a handbasket. The US population has more than doubled since the 70s, and the amount of livestock, like beef, has actually declined in the US since the 70s, but the disease rates have gone through the roof. So if it was meat, it's going in the wrong direction as far as the Bradford Hill criteria states. You just have to look at that. Meat consumption, milk consumption, all these are down. The plants and oils are all up. I think I know what is basically tracking the disease much better than anything else. So Taylor is probably now has gone from a traditional plant-based diet to a fattening Randall cycle engaging diet of seed oils and refined sugars in all that processed crap and slop that they call fake meats and whatever else. So yes, he won't be looking very good in the next couple of years, like a lot of the other vagoonerized, ignorant idiots out there. Yes, yes. We've seen as Lukey, who basically had, severe thyroiditis, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, since he improved his vitamin D status and his meat consumption, things are really looking good for him. It really turned around his health issues. And a lot of other people have noticed the same things. A lot of health things have improved. We know it in our community. We're well aware. We're just trying to basically, educate Taylor so he doesn't destroy his, the body that he's, the beautiful gift of the body that he's been given. Exactly. Perfectly said, James. Perfectly said. Don't blame modern diseases on ancient food. Precisely. I've heard all the arguments from the vegans. I've got stronger. It's because you're not engaging the Randall cycle. That's why. Because you've taken out a lot of the processed stuff. Why don't you try Carnivore for a month? See how that gets even better. Yes, he is. Oh, so angry. Yes. Yes, it's the vagoonerized diet that does that, unfortunately, to them. Yes. The brain is not getting sufficient cholesterol. It's not getting sufficient choline. It's not getting sufficient taurine, which increases GABA and calms down. Not enough meat, not enough taurine, not enough calming GABA effect. Yes, explains everything. Always feeling good that you're an animal. Always. Yeah, it's always a pleasure to be here and have a bit of fun with you guys. I just realized now that I'm getting, better known, I'm going to have more trolls come on here and they'll have a go and then they'll run away. They don't have much to say other than more and more nonsense and statements. And I always say, yes, you're young, and somebody that's young, like a lot of other people, can last a bit longer and sometimes can delude themselves for a bit longer. I doubt he's been a pure vegan for 7 years unless he has certain genes. He doesn't look like he comes from a tropical area. He looks like he comes from Northern Europe, and most Northern Europeans have a lot of conversion problems, deficiencies and all that. He's probably supplementing heavily like all the vagoons do. And then eventually they, as if basically there was a supplement company back 1,000 years ago, or 2,000 years ago, or even 100 years ago, providing all this stuff. Most of these people would be dead as a doornail. If you didn't consume B12, you'd basically, this brain wouldn't work. And your methylation, your homocysteine levels would be through the roof, as I've shown with that homocysteine one, where Gregor himself points out to the vagoons how bad their homocysteine levels are. So I would say to Taylor, have you checked your homocysteine levels, or are you feeling, or are you just delusional about it all? Brain damage. Yes, very well said. Yes, the cognitive dissonance is strong in that lad, very strong. Yes, he may learn something. That's exactly right, Robert. Exactly. As a person of Greek Orthodox faith, I tend to basically try and, help people and educate them if they want to. Oh, I'm going to, I'm human still. I'm going to have a bit of fun. But at the end of the day, what they're doing is just basically going to harm themselves long-term severely. and other people around that they will influence. So that's the other thing. Yes, the hyphens. Oh, yeah. He's young. You can see he's young, even from his image. And he's still got some mitochondrial density from his old diet, and he's still got some general robustness. When you're young, you can say all that garbage. I'd like to see him in about a decade's time when he's much older and things are not going very well and falling apart. And yes, he's probably going to be singing a very different tune at that stage and regretting all the damage that he's done, like many others have. So, yes, unfortunately. Every time I look at the studies, my blood pressure goes up. James, yes. You need some taurine. Just take a bit of extra taurine. That will bring your blood, or just eat a steak. That will lower your blood pressure. Yes, it's only when you combine fats and sugar that your blood pressure goes up. Water retention engages the Randle cycle and increases insulin, and insulin holds on to more water. So, yes, nothing like that insulin-inducing blood pressure. When your blender is so loud, it's difficult to listen to sense when your blender is so loud. Oh, thanks. Trouble. Oh, it's perfect. I'll pay that. I got a laugh out of that. Yeah, I should basically contact Sky because I bloody forgot and a few other people. Anyway, things to do. If I were a plant and you cut me, I'm pissed off. If you eat me, I'll cut you back tenfold. Carnivore endures. Nice one, mate. Thanks, y'all. I enjoyed as well. But, I do have a faith side to it as well, where to try and help someone. So that's an important thing for me as well, aspect. But I do, there's nothing when somebody's young, ignorant, and all go. And yes, you kind of sort of see it and you go, just wait a few more years and you'll be singing a very different tune. But yes, it's a bit of fun doing that as well. Would you say deuterium depletion is more important than deuterium consumption for health? Well, deuterium depletion is a rate limiting thing. There are enzymes that actually control that. So what you can do is what is called taking deuterium depleted water, and what that can do is that can dilute the fluid pools. It can also provide more deuterionated substrate for the Krebs cycle. But generally speaking, what you're trying to do is you're trying to flush out of the body. You're trying to change the ratios of deuterium to hydrogen ions within the body. That means that's what you're trying to do, and you're trying to provide the actual body with more, because really what the body wants, especially within particular the mitochondria, it actually wants deuterionated water. So low deuterium, zero deuterium, basically, water because if it doesn't have that, then the potential in the inner mitochondrial membrane for not protons, but some neutrons to get in there. And if they do, then they will come through the ATP synthase nano machine and they will bust it. And the more, obviously melatonin at night, good sleep, which is important, also repairs some of these busted nanomotors. But if you bust too many and you continue busting them at a higher rate by eating a lot of this sort of stuff, there's no real way of depleting sufficiently. you really just shouldn't be consuming foods that are high in deuterium, and that's basically sugar, seed oils, alcohol. Yes, alcohol. Yes, sorry, but it's the truth. And things like that. So yeah, the body can only do so many biological processes. There are within the energy production system, there's only so many enzymatic steps that can be done, and so much capacity for the body to do those things. So you can't really ramp up deuterium depletion. There are things that you can actually help slightly the body. So if you go out, your melanopsin receptors in your body can actually help draw in red light type spectrum. So that can help. And if you go out early in the morning and later at night as the dawn and and dusk effect, that the near infrared type spectrum that your body gets at that point can basically increase the energy sort of production capacity of complex 4, and that can actually improve mitochondrial efficiency in that regard. So you can actually get energy from the sun, in a sense. Obviously, plants do it much better with photosynthesis, but we can through complex 4. But at the same time, that also helps reduce deuterium. It's a sort of a 19 parts per million per hour. But that means exposing all your body, not only part of your body, to the sun to get that level. So yes, you get some, but you're not going to get massive. Really, ultimately, the thing that actually reduces deuterium is pretty much your own body's ability to do that, and it's a rate limiting thing. So you can only do so much every hour with those enzymes. So the key thing is, don't put as much in, because the more you put in, the more damage you'll do to those mitochondria. The more those electron chains in those folds in the mitochondria are actually damaged, the less energy you'll be able to produce, and the less energy you'll be able to produce through ATP synthase means that your cells won't be able to heal themselves or repair themselves fast enough. And the slower that happens, the more the cell will move into a state of senescence. That means it'll start, not, degrading in different parts of the cell, and eventually it'll go into a senescent state. And the more senescence you have in different organs or different body parts, you will get more pathology in those areas over time and degradation. So the ultimate way is to basically try to keep none of us have lived ancestrally to try and keep the deuterium low in our foods, which basically means, number one, keep the seed oils out. That is number one. It's the worst, 255 parts per million. The second, the other worst are different fruits, and they do vary. The fruits, they're sort of between 155 to 160 parts per million, depending on the fruit. And then you come down to sort of sugars and starches and all that, and they're between 147 to 150 something. They vary. Even water, too much water isn't a good thing. Tap water, 155 parts per million, very high, like sugar. That's why we believe in hydrating with fat and not sugar. Sugar will dehydrate you because it's got so much deuterium. When the body has to do these swaps between the ions, the hydrogen, the two stable isotopes of deuterium and hydrogen, and do this swap, what actually happens is you've got more, and that's what it's actually the production of water right through to fumarate hydratase, in the Krebs cycle. So you basically have all these enzymatic steps, and they're called all dehydrogenase. They're actually cleaving off, the actual hydrogen ions, and that's what you create water with. Okay, so you're combining it with oxygen and then oxidizing the carbons, and then you're basically just exhaling that as carbon dioxide. So But just to keep it simple, but the key thing is there is a certain rate limiting effect how much you can do that. And so you want less of that so you can actually have less, you're putting less, you can say, stress on the whole system of energy production, and you're creating cleaner water production, which means that actually creates a better functioning mitochondria. The ultimate animal, we can't become like the camels, but the camels are the ultimate deuterium depleting machines. They consume cactus, they get the water from cactus, which is around nearly 100 parts per million. It's really low. It's one of the lowest. I have no idea why cactus is so low in terms of deuterium. It's one of those, you can see I love deuterium, it's one of the lowest in the plant world you find. Maybe the way the synthetic system works, I'm not sure, but it's just one of those things. But camels basically you can't tell their age very easily, because they age so slowly and then just drop dead because cell division finishes. Once cell division finishes, what happens is you get this sort of deterioration. That means all these enzymes can't actually can't work anymore, and then you get this massive senescence that actually takes hold in the body, and then you just drop dead because you can't get more cell division. That's the way we want to live. That's how our ancestors, I've talked about like the Maasai, where a lady that I know that I've done videos with, Mary Ruddock, she's a nutritional researcher that goes to these ancestral populations. And she's in her mid-40s. She was plant-based before, and then she went to Greece and went to Ikaria and saw how these old people in the mountains were pastoralists, were eating like pork belly at lunchtime, and realized, and organ meats and stuff like that, and realized that the whole Ikaria longevity, blue zone was a myth. And she changed her diet, went low carb and all that, changed her whole lifestyle, and loved Greece and stayed in Greece. And then she did research in different parts, and she fixed her health. But even now, because she still sustained some damage, she couldn't keep up with an 80-year-old running up a hillside, Bruce. That's the difference. These people are out there in the sun depleting deuterium all day long, and they're having low deuterium foods all day long. And the only water they consume is from plants, which, like the Samburu people in an ostrich, Michelle, they usually just get all the water out of the actual leaves and put it in, and that's what they drink. And that's low deuterium. It's about probably, most of the plants are sort of varied between, the leaves of plants, the water from that, it's about from 100 odd to about 105 or 6 parts per million, which is very low. Lard is 116. It's the lowest. Tallow is slightly higher. Pork in general is lower. It's probably another reason lower deuterium in the Okinawan diet as well. So that's the sort of the fundamental. I do pay attention, Shell, what you've done and all that. I'll just ignore them. Don't worry. That's why I've got the other. I did in the past, but sometimes, I may answer. It depends how I feel, whether I can be bothered in some regards. If it's complete and utter nonsense, I won't be bothered. But if it's, something where it needs to be explained, I'll do that. But you do your thing, Shell. I trust you. And and basically, the key thing is to try and keep the deuterium down as much as possible. That's another reason don't consume food. So when you consume sugar, you produce only 0.44 per gram, 0.44 grams of metabolic water. You can do the maths for the conversion to ounces. But in mils, and that translates because if you're on the metric system, anybody understands the metric system, grams and mils are interchangeable. It's raining like buggery out there. So anyway, it's quite sunny before, and now it's gone really wet. Anyway, but so I hope that's not I can't really do much about it. I'm too close to the window. And the difference, the important difference you can say is the sort of the level of the water quality that you're actually creating. So you basically will mean you're only creating 0.44 water, and you actually have to cleave off all that other stuff and get rid of it. That means you're dehydrating your cell. Where with deuterium depleted foods like fat, you basically, it's the opposite. You actually gain 10%. So you basically go from 1 gram to 1.1 gram of metabolic water. So you actually gain more deuterium depleted water. Fundamentally changes those dynamics completely. And that is why when you consume sugar, you become more dehydrated. When you consume fat, you become more hydrated. Fat hydrates, sugar dehydrates. And the research is quite clear about this deuterium depletion, a system that actually works, and it works in that way. And the reality is most people are hydrating themselves with the wrong stuff. Water, high in deuterium, and plants, also high in deuterium, and are suffering the consequences of that. Now, green type plants are low in deuterium, but they have a lot of anti-nutrients, so they're not very good for the gut in that regard. So that's why I'm saying when somebody does a traditional vegan diet where they're eating a lot of these sort of green vegetables and stuff like that, they're actually getting low deuterium water from that. And they're getting a benefit in that without realizing it. But they should be doing what the tribal people do in Africa. They actually get the water out and they throw away the fiber and all the other crap, because the oxalates and all the other stuff are bound to the fiber. Unless you cook it, you don't release it. You don't break those bonds. So you just basically get the water, throw away all the fibrous crap, and you drink the water, which is low in deuterium, which photosynthesis has reduced the deuterium of that and the plant draws the deuterium out with that photosynthetic effect and drives it into the fruit. And it's a growth factor. That's why things that are high in deuterium are growth factors. Deuterium also drives cancer growth. Animal foods are lower, and so is animal fat. So if you lower, like in the camels that have use a lot of animal fat to lower deuterium, they never get cancer. You won't find one camel that gets cancer. There are a few that are just recently in the Middle East, but they've been feeding those grain and making them sick. And that's the only reason, but on their traditional diet, the camels do not get cancer. They were considered the only animal to be completely cancer-proof until they started feeding them grains, plants, high in deuterium, and they fucked it all up. Yes, is very much so. So no, you can't really increase depletion. You can sort of use water to make that, but really it's what you stick in your mouth that actually plays a big role. Bruce, yes, there are no cheat options available to get away. And the problem is, if you go too low in the deuterium depletion water, there's a lot of other disturbances. It has to be done a specific way, medically supervised, and too little and too much can be a problem. So there's a sweet spot, and it needs to be properly managed, and it should be happening through the body's own deterioration processes much better, because you could actually cause a lot of other imbalances, which are not very good. So while heavy, if somebody's highly deteriorated, deuterium heavy, deuterium depleted water with a specific protocol can help. But there are other factors and they need to be taken into consideration. So don't go away buying yourself deuterium depleted water. And if you're going to buy one that has actually got over 100 parts per million, because that's fine. As long as it's about 120 something, that's fine in that level. Below that, I do not recommend it unless somebody's got a disease state and it's being specifically administered by somebody, a practitioner that knows exactly what the quantities and other adjustments to diet and lifestyle that are required. So yes, so it's not to be experimental unless you know what you're doing. Oh, that's good. Well, a lot of my subs do that, which is a good thing. Yes, nothing like salted water. I put a bit of, when I'm doing a lot of exercise and all that, and hot, because you're going to deplete the deuterium from the being out UV and all that. So it's not as bad. No. Are you for real? I used to go hunting, mate. I enjoy hunting. You know, nothing wrong with hunting. I grew up on hunting, and my father also taught me how to slaughter animals. So I have no problems with slaughtering animals. They've lived their life, and then they become my food. Nothing wrong with that. I've got no problems, mate. Just because you've had a woke existence living in an urban environment disconnected from nature and reality, that's your problem. You need to basically wake up to yourself and realize your ancestral heritage and stop basically. It's people like myself, my father, and many others, the generations that came before you, that actually created the modern world. And now you can sit in front of a screen and have the comforts of not having to go out and find your own food. Yes. But since you're so ignorant, an ignorant little child, you don't understand that. That's your problem. Grow up. We've been consuming dark as tag. What a name. We've been consuming animal foods for a very long time, and there is evidence that we're super and hyper carnivore. And at the end of, fundamentally, all animals, if you, because I suspect if you're a person of faith, well, God basically gave us the animals to enjoy. If you're a person who believes in Darwinian logic and all that, you should also accept that you're a species, whether you like it or not, because Darwinian logic says it's the adaptable animals. That means they compete and outcompete others in an environment. They adapt better and basically displace those one way or another. And that is, every animal is a species, whether they like it or not. Otherwise, they would not survive. They would be getting a Darwin Award and be obliterated out of existence. So all animals are species, not only humans, all animals. And if you don't understand that fundamental Darwinian logic of evolution and adaptation of species and competition of species for their niche in an environment, you're pretty ignorant, I would say. Very ignorant. So you got no arguments. And if you've got no faith-based, then you've got basically just your own little woke, childish, you never grew up, disconnected from nature, watch too many Disney cartoons of animated creatures that talked, and you've got this, sort of infantile notion of animals. Grow up. Oh, well, it's all adjusted. I mean, epidemiology is just junk science, adjusted crap. So, Rumnica, it's exactly that. Yes. You guys are great. He's damaged worse than ever. He has been here before, kind of like Vegetable Police, but less funny. Yeah, exactly. Vegetable Police is actually funny. He's actually funny, actually. I used to subscribe to him for a while, and then I just got sick of it. His humor sort of, he lost the plot a couple of times, and I just say, yeah, goodbye. But he is funny compared to this guy, definitely. Ah, yes. Thank you, Lukey. Definitely hit the like button. Thumbs up, please, for the old boy. um, Not really, not really in that regard. We don't have any. I mean, I've heard people say that certain electrolytes have a certain effect, but there's not really a lot of research in that department. But at the end of the day, if you are primarily hydrating from fat and all that, having some water, I mean, I have a bit of water in my coffee and things like that. So, yeah, it's not a problem. I know that Laszlo, the researcher out of UCLA, Laszlo Boris, he actually gets his water sent over. He actually drinks no tap water. He basically eats smoked bacon, raw smoked bacon. He's an academic, a Hungarian academic by birth, very well educated, and he's the one that's sort of brought to the West a lot of the research in deuterium depletion, in a lot of the photonic or what is called quantum biology. So very much, a great sort of proponent of a lot of this information. So he's darkest tag. You should check your Vagunarized academic from the Stanford University. He did actually a study called the A to Z study. And if you Google Christopher Gartner, Stanford University, the A to Z study, you will actually see this Vagunarized academic having to accept that compared to the plant-based diet of Ornish, that the high meat, this is the traditional bacon and eggs, Atkins diet, was superior in a whole lot of inflammatory markers and a whole lot of others when they drilled. It was a diet study, but they did take blood tests from these people and actually looked at a whole lot of other factors. And then there was the A to Z study, and this was a 2-year and then a follow-up of 5 years in Israel, again showing the same thing between a low-fat diet, plant-based heavily, and a high-meat diet, Atkins one. And it was kosher because it was Israel, so there was no pork involved. It was just other ruminants like lamb, goat. It wasn't even a lot of beef. It was primarily lamb and goat and chicken and eggs and stuff like that, and fish, the version that they did in Israel. But it's still animal based, and it came out first, and that was over a number of years. And the same thing with the other one. All the rest is just food frequency questionnaires, mate. They get people on a sad diet who are sick in hospitals and ask them what do they eat. That tells you nothing, absolutely nothing. And then they compare it with healthy people like that are basically not smoking, not drinking, and all that, and are usually healthy users of bias, it's called, are doing a bit more plant-based and all that, and look a bit healthier, and usually tend to be younger as well. So obviously there's a lot of bias in these studies, the way they've been designed, and then make out a whole lot of spurious claims based on absolute nonsense. Where a food questionnaire, people can't remember exactly what they had over the whole year or a different period or last month even, or yesterday, some people, especially if you're a Vagoon with brain fog. So pretty much, you can basically get really, really good data from studies that are done in this way. And there's only 2 that have been done, these long-term. Everything else is short-term. All these other studies, even they do on the keto ones are, 1 week or 2 weeks. You're not even fat adapted. They're ridiculous. These were studies done over an entire year. They got a lot of funding for them. And once they actually came with a result back that the Atkins diet was superior after a year, and 2 years in the Israeli one, and after the 5-year follow-up, and in the Israeli one, it was even better. They actually provide a lot of the food at the Winona nuclear facility. So they even ate one of the meals there. They took some food with them. They used to hand them out. And so they had far more control on even the food stuff that they were given and got even better results. with the high-fat type diets, the animal-based ones. So it was quite clear. So that's the only good diets we've got, long-term diets. Everything else is epidemiology, and everything is observational, nothing controlled. You're not doing a specific diet. These are the only two studies, the A to Z study and the direct study out of Israel, that did actual look at specific diets. That's all we've got. And the rest is pretty junk science. So you should check that out and stop being, an ignorant vagoon. And you may learn something from another vagoon who had to eat his words and accept that the Atkins diet was superior to his plant-based diet. And he's a vagoonerized academic, Christopher Gardner. He got a lot of stick from Ornish. Oh, yes, because Ornish's meal ticket is based on vagoonerized recipes and vagoonerized lifestyle to get the dosh out of some of these middle-class woke idiots. Anyway, let's move on. Light water, magnesium, cellular water, use the focus considered. Water, heavy isotope of hydrogen, deuterium. Stick to the, there's a lot of things there to unravel in terms of all that. Let's put it this way. The most important thing is what you're putting in your mouth and the deuterium content of that. And usually if it's seed oils or highly refined plants, the more refinement you do to a thing, you actually change the hydrogen sort of composition within foods, and you end through the process of manufacturing, you end up adding more neutrons, more deuterium, and that's all. Even in protein powders, that's why I don't recommend protein powders. You will never see me recommend one protein powder on this channel. Why? Because I don't believe in them. I believe like the old steak and eggs bodybuilders, eat real meat, eat real animal foods. I don't believe in fake crap that's highly processed. It's high in deuterium, so I do not recommend. Now, do I use supplemental stuff that are protein powders in very small amounts, like a gram or stuff like that? Yes, because the level of content of deuterium is very low, but I'm not going to do like scoops of 30 grams and stuff like that. No, I'm going to eat real food. And those other things are there for biohacks or there for specific, because people have got certain conditions that need to be sorted, and they are short-term supplemental regimes or things that you do. But God, it's getting wild and wet out there. Yes. I hope that's not causing a lot of, how's Shell, how's it coming through? Is that noise from the rain and wind and out there? Because it's very windy and rainy out there at the moment. Is that coming through and making it a bit difficult for you guys to hear? Or do you mean Richard Blinky was actually entertaining? Oh, did I miss that? Oh, okay, that's good. It's not coming through. Yeah, I've actually enabled another setting. There's a null for the background noise and stuff like that. There's a couple of additional things, and I hadn't actually. There's the echo one, which I've always turned off because we used to have problems in the past when I first started the YouTube thing. But now there's this other, and that seems to. Oh, that's good. Good, it does work. No, because I was worried that it wasn't working. For me, I mean, even though I've got these earplugs in, it's really loud. I can't hear myself. How awful. I can't hear myself. I can't concentrate. These natural phenomena are causing me to lose my marbles. Yes. Yes. Ah, yes, great stuff. And also the fractionation of water, the higher you go in elevation, because of UV radiation being stronger, you actually get more deterioration of the water. So, yeah, so mountain water, people that are living in mountain areas are actually getting lower deuterium water. In some regards, you can actually drop from sea level at 155 down to 138 in some cases. They've actually found around the world in some different areas. Problem is, it's only people that have done the research in it that have found certain things. But if you've got access to like mountain water or go and get it. It's better than the tap water and cheaper. No, definitely can't. And it's usually basically, let's not forget, all the plant-based stuff is high in deuterium, the processed stuff, the pea isolates and all that crap as well, that a lot of these, as I said, these guys are going to get a nasty awakening later on when they get a bit older and will suffer for it. Unfortunately, as a human, I do worry about other people, about the human race, where we're heading and all that. So, and even for that guy, I mean, I don't hate him. I just feel sorry for him. I really feel sorry that he's lost, that Taylor's lost, and the other guy that, what was his bag at tag or whatever he's, I just feel sorry for them, that they've basically just destroying their bodies, Yeah, it's unfortunate. Yeah, it's very poor utilization. Probably the only way you basically could make plant protein a bit more utilizable for these people, if they wanted to, is by adding a bit of leucine in. So adding more leucine would actually sort of force the body to take up a bit more in terms of utilization, but it wouldn't be massive. And they would have to combine it with a number of different plant combinations. But if I was giving any recommendation to any vegan who's consuming a vegan diet, it would be to supplement leucine for muscle protein synthesis. That's all I would, because even the studies that actually showed where people were not given protein, because remember, they are on a diet that is basically a wasting away diet. And so they're actually tearing down tissue. And remember the fasting stuff on how the leucine basically was able to reverse and actually increase to some extent muscle protein synthesis, even in a fasted state, and also in a low protein state, the other component. So yeah, that's a sort of a biohack that I've said for older people who are sarcopenic and all that. If you've got older people, to basically use leucine as a supplement, you've got to use over 2.6, which is 3 grams for them to basically get sufficient muscle protein synthesis for these people. But it's probably a thing that vegans could do as well until they wake up to themselves, so they don't deteriorate too much. They won't thank us. I'll just take it and then brag that the diet's helping them without telling us that they basically use the leucine. But at the end of the day, I don't care, because I know it's nonsense. If we were to do a test, then we could always go and test yourself and prove that you don't have leucine in your system in the levels that a supplement would have. And they won't do that, we know, because they'll be caught out at that moment. But I would rather personally see them less sick and less deteriorating and less damaged, because at some point they'll realize they're on the wrong path. So we still need a lot of healthy humans around to keep the human race going. And if too many of us fall apart, like Pottinger's cats, it's not going to look good for us in the long run. Yeah, exactly. They wouldn't quit it. Let alone, look, I usually say to the vegans one simple thing. It's not a complicated thing. Show me one, just one society which is a multi-generational vegan society. One. Not 2, 3, 4, 5, just one single society anywhere in the world that is pure vegan. Never, their lips have never, animal foods have never crossed their lips. And they've been vegan multiple generations and able to reproduce. Show me one. There's none. You know? And that's the reality. And I've offered everything I've got. You can have everything I've got as a bet. But there's not one single bloody thing, because you'll never find one, because humans are not that friggin' stupid. It's only modern people that are basically being disconnected from nature that think in this bizarre way. And I've got a whole lot of processed things and supplements. Yes. If you take a look, go back a couple of years ago, I'll just say this. A couple of years ago, James, before supplements existed, you could only do vegetarianism because you could drink milk. I mean, a 16-ounce glass of milk will give you all your B12. So a vegetarian could drink a 16-ounce glass of milk and get all their, or if it was raw milk in particular, get all their B12 for the day, completely, you know, and a number of other nutrients from dairy products and from eggs, like choline, like, you know, for acetylcholine, neurotransmitter. They could get all these different things. Why? Because simple. Eggs and dairy can furnish a lot of the things. Yes, I have some deficiencies in terms of iron deficiency. That's endemic through the vegetarian community, is because both eggs and dairy are not a non-heme iron, and dairy doesn't have a lot of iron. It has very little. You have to eat animal products to get enough heme iron. And so in that regard, you could do a vegetarian diet to some extent. But when it comes, and even some plants that they actually got, they broke down the phytates and all the anti-nutrients. They had a whole lot of things that they did to break a lot of this sort of stuff. And the way they cooked them, nothing was raw, it was all cooked and stuff like that. And so to some extent, you could do it to an extent. But when it comes to veganism, it's impossible without the modern supplements. The modern supplements and the modern fake foods and all that have made veganism possible. That's why it's exploded only now and didn't explode years ago, because you couldn't do it unless you're an academic that knew how to supplement and inject themselves with all sorts of things. You know? So, yes. Yes, exactly. Devox, there is not one multi-generational vegan society that has done it without supplements, and never will. And I would challenge any vagoon to basically give up the supplements and do a non-processed, so none of the, because a lot of those plant-based foods now are all fortified with all sorts of micronutrients. Do just plants, you know? But they won't, because we know that if you do a clean plant only without any cheats or whatever else, you'll fail, like all of them do. Yeah, they've got no arguments. It's just sort of ridiculous. Oh, God, here's another cockwomble. Joni A. Comes from one to the other. The Buddhist monks actually consume meat, if you don't know it. That's absolute bullshit. I've actually visited monks in basically Thailand, and they eat meat. You're an absolute idiot. God. Have you got any brain cells, mate? Got any brain cells? I've actually seen, you know, and they primarily it's like chicken, eggs, and all that. They're vegetarian. They're not vegan, you know. So they have a lot of plant foods, which are all cooked, nothing raw to be very harmful to the gut. It's all soaked and all that in the traditional way to break down all the anti-nutrients. They do all those traditional methods. Plus, they combine it with a lot of dairy foods, like we're talking about dairy products from A2 animals, which they've got in their locality. It depends what the animals are around. Chickens, a lot of chickens are consumed, especially in Southeast Asia. Like it's like eggs, and every meal that you get, like in a multiple leaf, there's like 3 or 4 leaves, and they put it in, and you've got a bit of rice, a bit of vegetables, a bit of it's usually chicken. Sometimes it can have a bit of fish and a bit of some sort of herb. Some sort of herbal, it's usually a peppery type thing. And that's what it is. And they have a fried egg on top, every single one of those. Like if you've been to, anybody that's been to Bali knows, or, the nasi goreng and all that sort of meals, those are the standard ones. I mean, and organ meats and all that. I used to go to a lady that she used to make some of the best. She used to use Indonesian herbs to make the organ meats, the liver. And I used to go to this old lady, and she used to cook the absolute best recipe. And she used a herb which is similar to ginger. It relates. It's called galangan, and it's a very earthy herb. And when you combine it with liver, so you combine first, you cook the liver, and she did a lot of like chicken livers and stuff like that, and she'll cook those up with basically the coconut, and this was coconut and milk, and then threw in basically the galangan. Oh, what a taste. Absolutely divine. It's, you don't even realize you're having liver. It's like it's not exactly like nutmeg, but it has some elements which are similar, because nutmeg also originates from a similar area, Indonesia, but it's absolutely beautiful. Yeah, the reality is the guy has no idea. I've traveled since I was 18 years of age in Southeast Asia and around Asia since I was 18. My first actual location that I ended up in at 18 years of age was Bangladesh, of all places, a very underdeveloped place with a lot of lepers and all sorts of things. So a very interesting environment, let's say. I've been to places and seen things. I mean, this guy's probably hasn't even left his either dorm or his mother's, his bedroom in his mother's home. He's probably hasn't even left that, or, never seen the world. And he's got he knows, he's got a comment about everything. This guy. Oh, yes. Mate, grow up. Absolutely grow up. I've seen things in basically 1 year that you haven't seen in an entire life. The short life that you've had. The short, useless life that you've had, because you've done nothing productive about it to learn or educate yourself or improve yourself or enlighten yourself and go and see things and learn a lot about other cultures and stuff like that. So, cockwomble. And now I'm in my mid-50s. So I've been in Asia for a very long time in different parts of the world. So I know what people eat, do, and all that. And when I hear stories of other people saying, I go, nah, that hasn't been my absolute experience. I was there seeing it and eating with these people. So what the hell are you talking about? I've not come across one population in Southeast Asia or any parts of Asia that I've been to, or any parts of the world, Eastern Europe and other parts, where I've actually seen those populations actually eating more meat than the Westerners. It's probably a reason why they're not that sick. I mean, pork, if you go to China, pork is like big. It's like absolutely big as, and the Chinese will eat everything. I mean, everything, even dogs and cats and all that are on the menu. Everything, So this is when I hear people, these Chinese, eating rice all the time. No, they're eating dogs. They will eat everything and anything, you know, give us a break. And, you know, the China study, it's a book. His publisher told him, and he wrote it about a decade later, and he lied profusely, because I've actually downloaded the original study. It's the Blue Book, it's called. And it's a very thick book, and it's just got data, one sheet after another with all data of different areas. It actually shows the complete opposite of what he claims. He's selective in his memory and selective in his study. So people have caught him, you know, people have actually looked at the study themselves and actually realized that the original, which is not even called the China study, that's the book, that's not the study, that's the book, and his misrepresentation of the study, which was basically on the Chinese people at the time. And this was a people, you know, we're talking about a time when China was very underdeveloped, had been destroyed from the Second World War with the Japanese invasion that decimated the countryside, and people were basically on starvation foods. But still, even under those conditions, they were eating everything that was animal available around the place. And, you know, there were other, other toxins in the environment that, you know, sort of mold-related toxins and other things that were getting into the food supply. And in those populations it didn't matter what they were eating, they were getting certain cancers and stuff like that. But if you went to other areas where some areas were even consuming more animal foods, and that's in the data, and he ignores that, they didn't have these problems. So it's selective. This is the Vagoons, this is what they do. They selectively pick things that suit them to play out their narrative and ignore these fundamental things. And there was actually similar research where they used some of these toxins and things like that, experiments done in India, and he actually copied some of these to be able to use them in a deceptive way. You know, Campbell is basically a charlatan, a criminal, and basically one of the dodgiest academics you can come across, just as bad as Ansel Keys. Both should have been put in jail for their corrupt research. You couldn't even call it research, corrupt work. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Look, precisely. They use supplemental crap in very high doses and all that. And a lot of these people also have problems with their livers. You know, we're talking about modern people with a lot of things. Your liver, if it's healthy, has the capacity to store retinol in massive amounts, not small amounts, massive amounts. Okay? That's what the liver has, the ability. But if it becomes damaged, fibrotic and all that, it can't hold on to that. That's the problem in many cases. And a lot of people, because they're not getting enough choline, because, oh God, we shouldn't be eating eggs or liver or animal foods to get enough choline, which exports fat out of the liver. That's what choline does. It's one of its jobs of many in the body, but one of them is actually the export, the transport of VLDL out of the actual liver. And if you don't have enough choline, you actually get the buildup of fatty droplets in the actual liver. And only animal foods have that sort of stuff. And what happens is when somebody engages the Randall cycle and it's a mixed diet of poor quality foods, they're not getting enough choline in the standard diet because they are choline poor foods or processed, but they're getting fats from seed oils, but they can't process them, and they build up in the system. They build up in the liver, and they cause fibrotic and damage and all that. That's the problem. That's where fatty liver has come. If you look at all the experiments, what are they doing? They're adding back in there, Dylan, they're adding the seed oil. But if you go to the studies, like I've shown you, older studies, like when they were feeding, those animals just bacon or just animal foods, not an issue. But when they actually include the seed oils in there, that is a toxin to the liver, and they do not add the animal food in there, so they add the fat without the choline, which you'll get with the animal food, then the liver doesn't function properly. Voila. And when you eat only sugar, like a starvation vegan, diet, where you're low fat and all that, your liver is just basically taking sugar in and glycogen and then utilizing it as the primary energy. It doesn't really need a lot of choline at that stage, but it's not a sustainable way. Even Walter Kempner back in the 1930s understood that. It's not sustainable. That was my video that I did with Pim, some time ago, and explained about that, how the nutritional guidelines were influenced over time. It goes way back to the 1930s and that research that was done. So the low-fat research. But even Kempner understood it's not sustainable. Eventually it all falls apart. So he used it as a short term because he didn't understand the Randall cycle, because Philip Randall didn't publish that until 1963, and he didn't really understand the ketogenic diet because that was only being used at the Johns Hopkins University Hospital for epilepsy at the time. And there were some researchers that were using that method also for diabetes 1 pre-insulin days. Vitamin A best from blue light from the sun. It's free. Nothing like a free gift from nature. You still need to consume it. As I said, you don't get much energy or enzymatic, or, the energy you get that produced to synthesize certain things. There are very little stuff that you get. I mean, even the deuterium depletion is very little, 19 parts per million, and that you have to, many hours out there. But most of the populations, traditional populations, didn't consume deuterium heavy foods, and they got water, which was deuterium depleted. So it was less of an issue for them. As I said, for us, it's really food. We need to avoid foods high in deuterium because we've got very little capacity to deplete in our current environment the way we are. Cheats are costly, so to speak. Thanks, Shell. And you would have done it with style, I know. Oh, Elizabeth, good to see you here. What do you think about coconut oil? Is it better than lard? Some say coconut has more saturated fat. No, it's not as low in deuterium. What coconut does is actually puts all the deuterium in away from the fruit into the actual water. So the coconut water is very high in deuterium. Actually, it's higher than actually water. So it can actually get up to 160 parts per million. So coconut water is the worst water you can consume for deuterium. It's very high. So throw it away. Never consume coconut water. But coconut oil is low in deuterium, but not as low as lard. And it depends. It varies. Sometimes it can be a bit lower than lard. Sometimes it can be a bit higher than lard. It really depends. There's a lot of factors. A lot of plant deuterium levels are very inconsistent because it depends on the environment they grow, where animal foods are not, because there are a whole lot of enzymes. Like we've got the ability to deplete deuterium, so do animals. And so they usually are consistent. Where the difference is between a plant and an animal, a human and an animal, the difference is the food source. Let me just go back and retract everything I said there. Not humans or animals. All these vegan damn things are confusing me, Blinky. Damn vegans. I need to get them out of my mind, Elizabeth. Okay. Grass, pastured, or foraging animals compared to grain-fed animals. The grain-fed animal is going to have more deuterium in the food, and as a consequence, it'll actually end up with more in its body. So it will have slightly more deuterium. That's another point. Now, coconut has other problems. If you come from Northern Europe, you may have a salicylate problem. I know you don't. You come from your origins, some of your origins are from Southern Europe. So it's not a problem, because most Southern Europeans, from Spain right through to Greece, and Cyprus and parts of the Middle East and all that, pretty much all that population, we're talking about, so Portugal right through to Iran and beyond, all that sort of those areas have been exposed to salicylate foods for thousands of years. So they have an adaptation, they're fine. So coconut is fine. For Northern Europeans, it can be a problem because the downside of coconut versus animal fats is this: fat-soluble vitamins. So if I was to take a gram of butter or a gram of coconut oil or a gram of lard or a gram of coconut oil, I would always pick the animal food because I'm not only getting the fats, I'm also getting the fat-soluble vitamins. And it's critical. We need them to regulate the collagen-degrading enzymes, the matrix metalloproteinases in our bodies, if we want to maintain good structural integrity of our skeletal muscle system. So very important that we actually consume foods that are much higher in fat-soluble vitamins, because in our current diet, or the way most of us have lived we don't get much. So, and lard is very, and as you've seen my studies on the studies that I've shown about even cooking, in order to basically turn any animal food that is going to have not trace elements of oxidative products, but massive, and even then it wasn't massive, it was just slightly elevated. You had to basically cook the damn stuff, the pork, for 36 hours. Now, nobody's going to cook for that long. And it actually, when you cooked it for a bit over an hour, it actually made things better. So I tend to nowadays cook my meat over, on a specific foods like pork. Other foods, I just cook them for about 15 minutes because I like my beef more rare, so because I find it becomes too tough. Where with pork, no, it actually becomes, it's very different. I prefer cooked more, unless I'm having bacon, like smoked bacon, and then I'll have some raw smoked bacon, which is from foraged animals. I've shown you before on the stuff that I buy. It's from foraged animals, which is fine. I don't have a problem with that. It's local Tasmanian. I know the source, and they're pretty clean in that regard. But yes, I prefer. Look, I've used coconut oil in the past, but I usually recommend animal foods. We're better adapted to them, and we're going to get better micronutrition from them as well, from the fats. Oh well, you can't avoid it. I mean, there's going to be more as I get better known. There'll be more trolls turning up. That's that's life. I mean, I don't really get too phased and all that. I love how when I just calmly put them in their place, how they get so triggered. They go spastic. It's really funny. I actually get a laugh out of it. It's Lukey, good to see you, mate. With the importance of lard. Yes, the lard of the lamb. Of the land. Yeah, no, I know the fat of the land, but I call it the lard of the land. You know me. I do have. I'm a bit like the Okinawans and my ancestors, and I do have a bit of. Damn, I just lost my spot. Anyway, a whole lot of messages got lost. That's I fell so behind that StreamYard just decided to truncate everything of my messenger thing. It's just, unfortunately, sorry about that. So if I miss your message, your comment, just put it. You'll have to put it again. Unfortunately, it's just the way it is with StreamYard. It does that. So, oops, sorry. I wouldn't say it's better, but it is low in deuterium, a secondary option for some. Yep, that's a fair comment. Yes, very much. Definitely not. Definitely not. And they also have an actual method of getting rid of deuterium. Actually, they can actually remove deuterium and also extract fat and protein from the sources. So they have got they've developed enzymes and systems to basically do that. So, you know, so it's adapted. It's a species appropriate food for it. And it's worked out how to use a whole lot of enzymes that we don't have or other animals don't have, and is able to repackage those things and turn them into things that it needs. So this is a thing that people don't understand. I mean, a cow takes a whole lot of grass. It doesn't live off the grass, but what it does is through the three chambers, it ferments it. And a whole lot of little organisms, protozoa, bacteria, and other small organisms actually grow. And then they get like a sieve. It's like a sieve. They get sucked into the fourth chamber, which is highly acidic like ours. They also get short chain fatty acids. That's why dairy products have got a certain level of short chain fatty acid that also is coming from the plant for the actual fermentation of the fibers. And so you're getting that, which is a saturated fat, vagoons, don't forget. And you're getting that plus all these other long chain fats from the little organisms that have feasted on the actual fiber. They've come into the fourth chamber, and then the very acidic chamber like ours, like our stomach, and then they're absorbed. And that's where they get their protein and their fats from primarily, especially their long chain fats. Without long chain fats, you can't build cell structures. These people have no idea about physiology of animals or humans or anyone else. That's why they just talk absolute nonsense. So, yes, they're so funny sometimes. You listen to them and you go, how many brain cells does that person still have in their brain shrinkage diet? Dorian Rider, yes, Harley, yes, that cockwomble is just living. He's completely deranged and even has to use drugs to get any appreciated lean mass. Yes, exactly. He actually admitted to Bart. Remember in the only one and only debate they had together, he admitted that he was taking steroids because he couldn't maintain muscle mass. And he's still struggling. And all that is going to cause him is more health problems. We've seen what happens with over abuse of steroids in the bodybuilding community. A lot of those bodybuilders die young. So, yes, his diet in combination with his other abuses and supplementations are not going to provide him with longevity, let's put it that way. But those are the choices he's made. So he's going to have to live with them. And if he does see his maker, he'll tell him what a cockwomble he was for taking that path, that misanthropic path, and hating humans and glorifying animals. An opportunity. People are talking. I'm just saying, you guys are talking amongst yourselves, so I'm just going to click right through a few of these things until I hit a question. Sean knows me how I operate. Harry's fallen behind. Blinky also does. He needs to secretly and stealthily move ahead. He's not doing it that stealthy, isn't he? By telling everyone. If I don't want the alkaline and stuff that from cactus, could I enjoy cactus, then use a water distiller to get low deuterium water? I have no idea how to extract in a way to remove the pulp from the water, stuff like that. There's probably is a device out there you could probably use in that regard, or some sort of sieve thing or whatever. I mean, the camels have the enzymes, have a way of chewing the cactus that they can extract the water. And I think they have like a sucking motion as well. So, that's why they actually also, if you notice their mouth, they generate all this like a lot of saliva type thing. It's because of that sucking notion that they actually use to break down this sort of fibrous material and all that. So that's why they've got that. Yes. Don't know. Really, I honestly don't know how you'd go about sort of extracting it. Never thought of it, to be, But if you're in a region, I mean, I know you're in Texas, and there's probably a lot of cactus around. You know what's going to happen? You're going to have Necro Kitty out there with a machete, and on the news, massive loss of cactus in parts of Texas. There's a cactus, yes. I won't embellish it any further. You know what I mean? Yes. So, yeah, do let me know, Kitty. Once you play around with it, because I have absolutely no idea about how to get deuterium depleted water out of cactus. Interesting. It would be very interesting. Maybe you just need to cut it in a certain way and just let it drain out. Don't know. Be interesting. I have a juicer, Harry. That's how you get the cactus juice out. Oh, fair enough. Yes. Yeah. It probably is. Yes. Just try and remove all that fiber. You don't want all that crap. You need to sort of sieve out and remove the fiber part. Yes. Hronya Pola, thank you. It's sort of a blessing of may you have many years in Greek. Appreciate it very much. Thank you, Lemmy. Usually, even in name days or birthdays and all that, people just say Hronya Pola. They wish you a long life. So it's a nice sort of I actually think it's really nice. Everybody else sometimes says, oh, I hope you get this or get that and all that. I don't want items. I just want longer life. I want a longer, healthier life. So you could dehydrate the boogers. I like your witty humor. See, this is what that other guy missed out, Taylor and the other guy. They missed out on so good, carny humor that, we come up with. We're so chilled out and we enjoy our carny humor. Yes. Oops. What did I just do? Don't do that, Harry. Click the wrong button. You guys all realize about 30 of us should have, like with Harry, and unsubbed when he hit 1K, of course, just temporarily. You should be that. I didn't realize you were that nasty, Devox. You're a bad, bad man. You want to give me a heart attack or something? I was just enjoying the bliss of 1,000. See what I have to put up with, Richard? What I have to put up with. Is that the dark as tag that? Oh. Apparently, I'm a serial killer. Hey, with that train, he could run down all sorts of. He's probably running down all sorts of little critters on the rail tracks. Who's the serial killer? I would say. Yes. Are you talking about yourself, mate? The old vegan kill cult. Let's get out there. Let's kill all nature. Let's kill all the animals. We don't need them. We don't want them suffering. Let's kill them all. Who's the serial killer? I would say. God almighty, these people. Yes. Strange. Very strange. Extremely strange. Yes, yes. Bit of water when you're exercising is a fine, because you're actually increasing also deuterium depletion under those circumstances. So it sort of balances each other out in a sense. But we're talking about excessive here, where it goes beyond the body's capacity to clear the stuff out. Where, you know, like 2 liters of water, I mean, or 3 liters, like some people, that's just ridiculous. I mean, you see the tribal people, like, for instance, when Mary was walking around, they had water with them, water bottles. None of the tribal people had water bottles. They just walked for hours without drinking anything out in the hot sun, because you hydrate yourself with fat. You only dehydrate yourself, as I explained earlier, with sugar. The problem is our systems are not as fine-tuned like these. We've suffered, you know, if I was younger, I'd do things very differently. But now I'm old. I've got less mitochondrial density. I've damaged more of my body. And as a consequence, you know, I don't have the same capacity to basically produce as metabolic water. Now I'm trying to repair that by getting rid of senescent cells with the, you know, the physin and other things. Yes, it's a struggle. Exactly. Very well said. Exactly. I know what God likes. It's Abel's animal foods, not Cain's fruit. Remember, it was the apple. Yes, the evil apple that was handed over to Eve. Yes. And the goons are trying to hand over all their apples to everyone to turn them all into Eve's, to turn against God. Yes, exactly. Yes. The vagoonerized misanthropists. We should make T-shirts of that sort. A vagoon is a devil worshipper handing over an apple. Ah, yes, very much. Yes. It's extreme brain fog. I like how they get triggered. It's really funny. I just sit there and just, you know, I can get into a laughter state. They are really, really clowns. Well said, Blinky. Yes. What a clown. To brew. You guys are coming up with all sorts of recipes. I suspect Kitty will appreciate that. Ah, yes, definitely a clown. Yes, yes. Unlike an upstanding Western Australian that you are, Blinky. I was going to say, you're late. Where were you? Did you go shopping or something? Playing in Sky's Dungeon, maybe. Oh, mate. RF Breed 321. Perfect. How do you kill a vegan zombie? You insert a stake in it. It's his heart. That is a really, really good one. Oh, God, that is perfect. God, I've even come up with an idea for a zombie movie. Hey. Sir Mouse to you. Earlier in the chat may have been entertaining to you blinkers, but all over now. Oh. So you did enjoy my little moments, special moments. Yes, blinkers would have definitely loved them. G'day, Helen. Yes. I was worried that it was going to come through and going to be quite noisy. It's sort of eased off now. The sun's coming back out, so it's something. When you stop talking, Harry Serpanos, I could turn up the speakers to hear the rain, but it's super quiet otherwise. Yeah, it's probably when I start. It's because of the software. It sort of cancels out when I speak directly into it. If I slightly go off or whatever, then it'll come through. Sort of because it's monodirectional. Because I don't want background noise. So the way it's designed, this microphone is not to pick up background. It's supposed to pick up just ahead and focus on that. And then I use the other sort of the cancellation and all that sort of stuff. So sort of seems to work most of the time, but there's a couple of times where it's everything is hot on DJ mitochondria until the turntable breaks. Yes. Can't get this out of the chop right of my head, Harry. Sorry. Oops. Northern California. Isn't that where that's where no, Sean's actually gone further north to Washington State, hasn't he? I think. Or am I wrong? Anyway, could be wrong. Yes, we know where Shelley's from, Southern Ohio. I used to actually mix up Shell's location. I used to think that she was that Kitty was basically, who's from Texas, was from Ohio, and Shell was from Texas. And I used to mix them up. And then Shell put me right and said, no, you got it wrong. And I go, oh shit. It's when you get these wild streams, of information, you just go, oh, yes. Always best to ask again, just to make sure you fill in the gaps properly, because it's very easy not to. Enjoy your exercise. Animal protein. Got to convert some of the animal protein. Fair enough. Nice way of putting it. Essential nutrients are not found in any plants or synthesized. Yeah, exactly. That's why they're called essential. And that's one thing that the vegans don't understand. Yes, it's really funny with the vegan crowd that they just do not pick up on these little nuances at all, Devox. Yes. And fatty acids, sure. And the society that does it without supplements. Yes, exactly. The stuff that we're talking about earlier. Yeah, look, they have nothing. And that's it. I'm down for being a trans camel. So you identify as a camel now? You're an animal? With one hump or two humps? We need clarification. Yeah, look, exactly. You know, look, in the last couple of 100 years or that, it's only been very recently they've actually built up the beef livestock. The majority of animals that we've consumed for most of history in terms of domesticated animals have been goats, sheep, pigs, or swine, as people call them, chickens. Those are the sort of things that we've actually pretty much. And in some regions of the world, horses, donkeys, because you can get milk from donkeys, you can get milk from horses. A lot of the, like the Mongols, they consume a lot of horse milk. And so, and also horse meat. And so you've got all these sort of things, and there's some areas like in Greece, like in northern Greece, and in the island of Evia, which is this island to the northeast, the one that was actually on the news recently about the whole island burning up with a lot of fires, forest fires. Well, that one there has got a lot of cattle on it. There are more flat areas, and they do have a lot of cattle. But those are the two areas, and you know, in parts of northern Europe, you know, you'll find in certain places and that, but there it's sort of sparse in terms of different areas. But you know, chickens have been around for a very long time. Yes, damn dinosaurs never died out, and we've been consuming chickens and piglets. I mean, even the chimps hunt piglets and consume them. So they've been in the sort of ancestral diet for a very, very long time. So that's why I've always said I couldn't believe that people could basically think them. Now, beef has a lot of similar profiles with a lot of the ruminant animals that we find in Africa. So we are adapted to similar type of, and they have similar profiles in terms of a number of things. That's for a video another day. If I get a chance this week, I may do it. It's one thing that I know that Mick the Vegan was talking a bit of nonsense, and it's probably a bit of good polemic because it actually shows the ratios of fat, protein, and all that, and some of the stupid claims he makes. So I'll see if I get a chance. If I get a chance, I'll do it this week. The priority that I've taken the week off is to basically sort out that room. That is the priority, and anything else will be basically secondary. So I'll make that clear from the outset, because I've got to get that room sorted. In that regard, yes. Just weighed the 15 grams recommended by the Eat Lancet diet, and not even a mouthful. Criminal. You guys are improving in your comedy. That's what I've noticed. Yes. I mean, this is the craziness. I sometimes sit down and listen to some of these people, and I go, are they brain dead? It's like they go, oh, yeah. I mean, I've done the one that how protein doesn't cause sugar in the, you know, anything like that. And even Gundry recently in one of his videos, he actually admitted it. He actually admitted that when you eat, it takes quite a few hours, especially when it's protein and food like that. It takes quite a few hours to get through the digestive. It could take a whole day. That is why there's not a problem. So you can eat massive amounts in one meal, like Bart does. I split mine in 2 meals, but that's me. Bart does it in 1 meal. But the reality is, it takes 4 to 6 hours in the stomach, and then after that, it will slowly move through the digestive system and slowly be absorbed. And all that will happen is some of that protein will go in a protein pool, and when the body needs it, it'll use it, and it will be slowly digested and absorbed over quite a few extra hours after that, another 6, 7, up to potentially a couple of days for certain parts of the food you've eaten. So digestion can take quite some time in that regard. This is why when you throw in a whole lot of fiber, you can actually clog yourself up very fast. And that's why most things like diverticulitis and all that is really because we've gone more to plants. When we go back in time, most of the foods we consumed were animal foods, 50s, 60s and all that. And a lot of the foods were cooked and easier to digest, and people didn't have constipation or anything issues whatsoever. And even most of the actual plants, they were very much, potatoes, carrots and all that. They were all starchy type. Wasn't much sugar around then. It was only seasonal with fruit, no refrigeration. And so pretty much it was just basically some tubers, meats and all that. And they were more physically active. So that glycogen was being used quite intensely for those people. So it wasn't as much of a problem. And they were eating less in terms of calories compared to today. So they were not increasing the energy beyond a point to engage the Randall cycle. So their energy was always sort of suboptimal for most populations. You can even see today, a lot of them still have the culture like the Okinawans until you're 80% full. So they've got traditions to restrict the amount of overfeeding and stuff like that. So yeah, it's a very different world we live in now. Very refined crap and all that. Yes, very different. Oops. She put it in twice. By far. Yes, that's what it's called. Galangal. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for the correction. Yes. I'm with tongue twisting words. I have a bit of a difficulty. It's something that I've had from a young child. So it's, it's not that I don't understand. I can't read the word or that. It's just, I have a tongue. Yeah. I get tongue twisted very easily. It's just one of those things, but it is what it is. That's what I am. That's part of my makeup. And so, yes. And you probably see it when I read things, long words, I just get into a tongue twisted state. It's just something that I've had from a young age. So I can't do anything about it, or I've tried, but it hasn't really worked. No. Yes, exactly. And I've met many Buddhist people, and you will see them consuming quite a bit of, especially, things like cheeses and things like chicken in particular. Chicken is quite popular, especially if she's from Southeast Asia. Very much chicken, eggs. Somebody's trying to call me. Don't they know I'm online? What is wrong with them? It's probably Dad. I've got something for you. Oh, God. Yes. I will sort him out because I'm going to do just another half hour and then I'm going to pull the plug. Yes, exactly. This is a little ignorant little child in his mother's, in a dormitory or in his mother's basement, playing his little computer games, disconnected from everything, and thinks he knows everything and all that. Reads some crackpot blog from some other vagoonerized moron and makes the same claim, and it's probably never, let alone met or even known a Buddhist person. I mean, I actually know a Buddhist monk. I'm talking about a monk, okay? He's a dentist, Tony. I've had coffee with him on a couple of occasions. He just lives up the road here. These people have no idea to tell me about Buddhists. Yeah, I know exactly. And you're married to one, so ridiculous, But that's the crazy world we live in. People just make shit up. As long as it suits their narrative, it's propaganda. Ah, yes, yes. Oh, it's good propaganda, Shell. Good quality propaganda. The science is shit, but the propaganda is spot on. It works for the vagoonerized out there. Yes, yes. It's a blessed day. I'll be nice. I'll be good. You got the hit in the head. Yeah, exactly. You guys are having a bit of a conversation about scriptures and all sorts of things. Ah, yes. Is there any vegan here? Please share some sites of vegans that do live streams like this, please. Exactly. I mean, they'd be brain fogged and comatose within half an hour. And they have to have a script, off the cuff like that. Ah, yes, they would be struggling. See, that's why they don't stay around a lot. They they have their mental tantrum and all that, and then they fall into a sugar coma. That's why they don't. They can't sustain the attack. Oh yeah, exactly. The plant-based there is also a big. Actually, one of my mates, he was married to an Indian lady who was from Fiji, and I, in years ago, enjoyed quite a few of her meals. Now, she did make some vegetarian meals, but she made plenty of meals that had meat in it. So, yeah, I've heard that sort of nonsense as well. But it's primarily what they do cook is things like chicken. They don't cook beef. That's sort of against their religion. But they do cook other things, other animals, in particular chickens, sort of chicken, eggs, dairy products, that sort of stuff. So they do get certain animal foods in. But they eat a lot of seafood, fish, seafood. So they're getting plenty of animal foods in, don't worry, in that regard. And the ones that get less are actually less healthy. There's a bit of a movement now in India as well, like a vegan movement that's grown a bit. Ron Rosdale, who's out there doing a lot of consultancy work, has actually identified a lot of these people, and he's seeing massive deficiencies in a number of things amongst these populations. And he's trying to encourage them to eat a few more eggs, some fish and stuff like that to get the nutrients that they're missing. But it's the urbanized Hindus that are basically online, come across the vegan nonsense and have been swept in it, younger people in particular. But the traditional people if you go to the villages and all that, yeah, they just don't. Yes, they don't eat beef. They don't kill cows because they're sacred. But when it comes to other meats, not an issue. Fish is on the menu. Crustaceans are on the menu. Things like, and we're talking about coastal fish and river fish, and also chicken, eggs, the dairy products from the cows. Milk, raw milk, and a number of other dairy products. In particular, yogurts. They do make yogurts, and they do make basically sort of kefirs and all sorts of things of that sort. There's a question mark in terms of archaeology whether for parts of the world, whether we know that like a yogurt type thing, we know the Mongols created their own yogurt. We're not sure whether the Middle Eastern people created it themselves independent of the Indians, or whether they got it from the Indians, the yogurt type thing. We're not sure about that, but it's a bit of a controversy. And the Indians claim they produce it, and some of the Middle Eastern people say, no, we actually made it our own. So it's a bit of that sort of stuff, a bit of banter, archaeological banter out there. I thought I'd throw it in. Yes, look, this is the problem. These people do not they've They've never left their mother's little sort of a cave, which they've lived in, being fed, spoon-fed, and basically on their little computer as keyboard warriors. Yes, because that's all they can do. Yes. You got to feel sorry for these little retards, but, what can you say? Oh, did I say something inappropriate? Oh, well, that's me. Asians cannot say the letter L and say N. Galang, gun. Yes. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. 70 years old, 59 now. Yep, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I was sort of in Asia I was 18 and it was 1984. So it's a long, long time ago in Bangladesh, actually. So flew into Dakar and it was very much let's say, an interesting experience, sort of, it didn't seem like a capital city. It seemed like a shanty town. It was a really strange. It was underdeveloped at the time. It was very few people living in the city. Most people lived in the land, were involved in agricultural, coastal activities, fishing and stuff like that. So, yeah, it was and we went to an old hotel, which was sort of a colonial-based, British colonial old building that was still being maintained and was working as a hotel. But primarily, there was very few tourists, and it was primarily wealthy locals who were basically visiting from the countryside that were basically in the hotel. So it was people from different regions that were coming because they had to come to the capital for business. So it was very interesting to see what people ate and all that. And I never found a vegan amongst them, all these populations that I've traveled, from the most traditional to, it's only when they get into the modern city, online, and they are connected to the world that basically some of them succumb to the nonsense, But most of the locals, they'll eat anything. If it walks or walks on the land or grows on the land, they'll eat it. In countries where nutrient deficiency or they can't get enough calories, they can't get enough energy for their body and protein and stuff like that, nothing goes to waste. Everything is used, nose to tail, plants, anything. And to digest things, they prepare them in the traditional ways, breaking down the anti-nutrients in the foods. They don't just eat them like that. And that's why they can tolerate. They're not species-appropriate foods. These people tend to be shorter and smaller in stature and all that because they're not getting it. They're undernourished. But the reality is they still are able to survive and keep reproducing at a young age. At an older age, less, But, it's another reason why they used to get married younger as well in those societies. 12, 13 years old, exactly. That's what was happening. Yes. Most veganerized live a very sheltered life. When Douglas Mawson and mates got a vitamin A from eating dog liver, any idea what their diet was on when they ran out of other foods? They were actually they had a whole lot of processed foods. So they were, they had very low in terms of the other vitamins, the other fat-soluble vitamins. That's why I always say to people, you need to balance retinol with vitamin D and MK4. You need to be getting, if you're eating animal foods and you're out in the sun, salt and meat, you should be getting enough of these things to be, because a lot of the actual enzymes that use up vitamin D also use up retinol. And so you need, it's like, for instance, prostate. You need the key vitamin in the actual, because we talk about, many people, you've probably heard people say about vitamin A, retinol, involved in cell differentiation and proliferation. Well, so is vitamin D. And in some tissue, it's even more important than retinol. And so there are enzymes that can regulate proliferation and also collagen turnover and structures and all that of cells. And they need to be regulated by these fat-soluble vitamins. So they work synergistically together. So you need basically both the retinol, but you need basically also, and traditional societies, they weren't eating like massive amounts of retinol. They were basically eating small amounts as a supplement, a daily supplement. So it was very, very different in that regard, Thanks, Neff. Appreciate it, mate. Oops. Thank you. Oops. Now I need to find my other spot where I was with Shell. That was Helen. Sorry, Helen. Yeah. So yeah, that's what really the case was, that they actually they didn't have any other meats, and they just basically consumed far too much. And I don't know what because they were outdoorsy type people. They would have had because they were in a cold climate for quite some time and all that, and they weren't out. What I mean is they weren't outdoorsy people in the southern hemisphere. You don't get a lot of sun because, so you have to think about somebody coming from, because I think they resided in a period of time in Tasmania, and Tasmania is well known for very low vitamin D. So it's well known, Our population down here has a lot of very low vitamin D levels. It's endemic in Tasmania. It's a problem. Most people down here, because we're just so far south away from the equator. It's the reason why I go to the tropics every summer to basically, well, I used to until lockdowns came into effect, to basically get my vitamin D levels up. So that person would have gone there without the knowledge we have today. Remember, these people were eating a lot of processed type, a lot of grains and stuff like that. The colonies were much, they weren't as wealthy. So it was, and when you were there, you basically took food that could last, and it was all the seed oils and stuff like that. This is another reason why the officers on ships that used to eat meat didn't get scurvy, but it was the actual, the sailors who ate all the dried biscuits and stuff like that. So that's the problem. They took a lot of that sort of stuff with them. And so was it due to the hypervitaminosis, or was it a combination of low vitamin D and a whole lot of kibble and stuff like that in combination? So because we don't have studies, and we know populations live in these cold climates, and like Stefansson, when he didn't do what the other explorers in the Arctic did, but actually did what the Inuit didn't have those problems. So that's a very important thing to learn. When you are eating appropriately for your environment, you're going to be fine. It's like, for instance, when you can eat shitloads of meat, your insulin to glucagon is going to be very low. Throw in sugar into the mix, like you do understand, and the insulin spikes can go up as high as 70-fold in comparison to glucagon. That's all you've done. You've actually put in a whole lot of sugar, together with the actual meat, and you've completely changed the hormonal state in the body. And it's the same thing with a lot of these sort of things, is that if you basically, and specifically certain animals concentrate quite a bit of retinol in their livers compared, even human livers are very high. We concentrate quite a bit. We've got a massive storage capacity. So yes, so you've got to be careful if you're a cannibal. But yeah, just jokes aside, we don't have a lot of the information on exactly what happened with these people. We know other people that do consume small amounts of liver and a lot of muscle meat in those environments and get a lot of fat. They don't have these issues. They don't have rabbit starvation. They don't have any of these issues. So as one would say, as Sky would say, they did it wrong. But there's not enough details. So I've actually tried to look to find some of the details. The only stuff that I can really find is Stefansson, where he actually looks into this stuff in detail and works out exactly what's happening, you know. But with a lot of these other explorers, their log files were not on nutrition. Their log files were more related to other things that they observed in their environment. So they were less focused on themselves. And so we don't really have information to really know what the hell they were doing. So yeah, do not know enough. If you do have information, Helen, please email it to me. I'd love to look at it and sort of pull it apart. Good on you, Shell. If I see you on the next one early in the morning, yeah, get to bed, enjoy your night. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it, and appreciate your support, and appreciate how you spanked those cockwombles, those vagoonerized cockwombles. Very much enjoyed it. Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, I'll be soon pulling the plug as well, myself. So just have to go. I've got a whole lot of laundry that I have to finish, which is, I tried to, before, because my in-between period, so I watched Bart's stuff and then the live stream. Before the live stream, I was just running around. I'm going, what do I need to throw in the get ready. So it's done once, like a wash cycle. Now I have to go, and I usually, what I do is I run one, and then I run one just with water. So I do a quick cycle, like half an hour and then so it's, first one is 36 minutes and then 21 minutes. And that's I want water through, warm water, to get rid of any of the soap material, whatever, to clear it all out. And then I run the dryer cycle. And when you smell it, it's fine. There's none of that, no chemicals and stuff. I try to minimize as much as that as possible. It's not always practical, the world we live in. But as much as possible is what I do. Is there a chance that if a person has high vitamin D status and they can produce too much calcium and get kidney stones? Nope. If they are actually eating a species appropriate diet, that's not going to happen, because you've got basically, from the meat, you'll get taurine, and taurine regulates the electrolytes, including calcium. So it doesn't actually allow calcium to accumulate. It actually regulates it pretty well with taurine. Then you've got MK4, which will rip it from the bloodstream and the excess and move it into the bones and take it also from soft tissue. So no. So if you've got a high status, it's fine. You're not going to get any problems. The problem is when you basically have very low retinol, very low MK4, you're on a species inappropriate diet, you don't have very much, and you're just supplementing. That means you're on a SAD diet, so you don't have the regulatory effect on the fluids of taurine that comes from meat. You don't have the fat-soluble vitamins to balance things out, to transcript vitamin D and retinol, transcript a number of enzymes. So these proteins that are generated by the body that need to be activated by MK4, like the osteocalcin ones and all, they need both vitamin D and vitamin A for that purpose. And so when you're on a species appropriate diet, you will regulate, and then those proteins then activated by MK4 because it's in the food, the animal food, it will take that calcium because it's got a nice big double hook, and it will actually grab that calcium and move it to the bone. And also you've got phosphorus. Remember, meat has phosphorus and has quite a bit of it. Remember the stuff that I showed? The more, that I did show once in one of my live streams, but I think I still need to do that one, don't I? Or have I done it? No. Anyway, I think I've shown it in a live stream, but I haven't actually done this to show the 3 things that you need. The calcium. Sorry, the key ones are protein, salt, and phosphorus. What do we find most phosphorus? In meat. Protein in animal foods, primarily high quality, and salt. And the 3, if you remove any one of those 3 or all 3, you reduce bone density. And that was that clinical study where they had them in a clinic, intravenously putting that stuff in and removing amounts of different ones. And that is mechanistic. That is replicatable, mechanistic. That is gold-plated. Because that I can do on myself, I can do on any human on this planet, and that is mechanistic proof that you need salt, phosphorus, and everybody demonizes phosphorus because it's in meat animal products. Oh, it's gonna basically remove all the calcium out of your bones. Too much phosphorus. You hear that bullshit. It's the actual opposite. They've completely got the biochemistry and physiology wrong. Again, reductionist nonsense. That's why. And it's all these petri dish experiments that they did in the past that got completely fucking wrong. And the other part is protein. And so so don't have to worry. If you're on a species appropriate diet, you're eating, your body will regulate all these things appropriately. So do not worry too much about that. And when we're talking about calcium, when we're talking about vitamin D, I'm talking about people supplementing 10,000 IUs, not hundreds and hundreds of thousands. You have to supplement hundreds and hundreds of thousands of IUs every single day for months for something like that to happen, Devox. So it's never going to be a problem on our diet. And not only that, guess what the body also does? When you don't overload it with a lot of stuff, the body, when it comes to minerals, a lot of things that a lot of people don't realize, guess what the body does? It regulates the amount of minerals in your body, and it uses bile to excrete them. Yes. Who would have known? The bile out of your gallbladder is the stuff that actually binds excess minerals and excretes them. That's part of it. Remember, I think I've even shown the magnesium part. Remember, you get about 20 milligrams you get out of your feces, and through your urine, you get about 100, the 120 roundabout. And you can actually excrete even more than that. That is just the general excretion. You can actually do even more depending on what load you put in. So this is how funny it is that you see these people taking 300, 400, 500 milligrams of magnesium, and most of it is being excreted or pissed out. And I'm going, that is funny as, because the body in its normal physiological state from food excretes about 120, and we usually get far more in that regard, and we use it for biological processes. And when you don't use it, remember, carbohydrate metabolism uses more. So when you're not on a carbohydrate metabolism, you end up excreting more through the bile than that. That level 120 is based on somebody who's on a sad diet, on a general diet. And many years ago, whatever the diet was many years ago, which combined both animal foods and some plants, in the 50s, 60s, and that period. But generally speaking, if you're on a carnivore diet, you're actually even utilizing less magnesium, less thiamine, less a lot of these cofactors. Why? because your body doesn't need as many to run a whole lot of enzymatic processes. There are far more enzymatic processes involved in, oxidizing sugar, and that's the difference. That's why you need more, and that's pretty much the sort of difference. And your body will excrete that excess as long as your liver is functional, and as long as your gallbladder is functional and not deranged. All that, you can actually manage all that properly. It's when we derange the systems, that's when I'm going, okay, we need to emulsify with taurine, that we need to basically get in the, allopulic acid to repair some of this stuff so it works properly. We need to do that. That's when I start suggesting all these things. When you come to me in a deranged way because you've done damage on an inappropriate diet in the past, and most of us have, including me. So, yes, that is the actual story, the way it goes. Mate, it's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. We've got some beautiful smoked Tasmanian bacon here. And I'm a let's say I really, really go for it. I'll actually get packs like this. And remember, bacon is the lowest deuterium, I think it's the lowest of all the animal foods, excluding crustaceans. Yeah, we have to exclude crustaceans. There's a couple of others that we exclude, but when we're talking about actual flesh of animal, it's the lowest. It's the lowest of the ruminants as far as, but about fish maybe slightly less, but not all of them. Depends on the fish as well. Yeah. I've only looked at a couple of fish. I haven't looked at all the fish in terms of deuterium. So yeah, I'm not going to make any claims at this point because I can't remember exactly. But yeah, ruminant animals, the pigs are the lowest. And the foods that I consume, I do have a preference for pork, but I get clean pork. It's all free range foraging pork, which I buy. I don't buy the factory stuff or anything like that, or stuff that's being fed grains. They will have higher deuterium and may even have higher deuterium than grass-fed beef. So, but I love pork, and so, I mean, it would be really annoying if I was somewhere else in the world and I couldn't access free-range foraging pork because I love it so much, and I love bacon. Actually, bacon is probably my favorite animal food. I can eat bacon all day, all week. Anyway, making myself really hungry. But I realize that I need to mix because you want to get a lot of different micronutrients from a whole lot of different animal sources. So, but yes, I really love bacon. Let's put it that way. Blinky, you know me. That's your purpose in life, Blinky, to basically remind me that I need to move things along. You should do it more often. He does it in his normal abusive way. Yes. But he's my personalized troll, so everybody has to have a personalized troll in life to just basically keep them, pushing them along and stuff like that. Yeah, that was the juice on the cactus. How far behind? I'm bloody behind as. Look, I'm going to pull the plug, guys, and I do apologize for those who I haven't covered and I haven't talked, in that regard. So I do honestly, Neff, thanks for the donation. Appreciate it, mate. And it just got turned on. I didn't even know about it because yesterday, actually Shell was the first that basically, and because she actually I didn't even know it was activated, because once you get in, you turn on the monetizing thing, and you get in the partnership, because they've actually changed it. You have to do two things, like a partnership thing, and they actually activate these things. They still haven't activated one of the other things, so you can't get any funds out until they activate that part. And so they're going through all these stages. So they tell you, oh, in a couple of days. Thanks, Richard. You guys are giving me some extra money for some coffees out there or things. Appreciate it. Come to Discord. I will show you what trolling is. Now you know why I don't turn up. And I do turn up sometimes secretly, Blinky, and I keep an eye on people like you. Is Blinky around? And then most of the time he is. Do you actually live on Discord, Blinky? You know, on Sky's Discord, on Bart's Discord? He's waiting for his chance, isn't he, Richard? He's waiting for his chance to go for me. He wonders why I don't turn up. I would turn up. I just don't have the time. It's just, yes, I need to sort out some sort of time management with social media a bit better. But as you know, you guys know, I always, you know, answer everybody's questions as quick as I can, you know, comments and stuff like that. And if you're doing a lot of that, it's, and Kitty's actually confirmed that, because I know I've been on there sometimes silently, you know, and I've seen him, he's around, you know, so I'm going, yeah, Blinky's here. Yes, we know he basically lives off, and not only Bart's but also Sky's. He's like a chameleon in both. Now the secret is out. We can stuff some funds Harry's way. Thanks, Richard. As I said, if you basically want to, that's up to you. I do not ask anyone for anything. I do this, and I'll probably end up, you know, using it eventually to get some software and stuff like that and update. I probably need to update one of my software packages. And eventually, I mean, I've already spent on the monitors, you know, plenty of dosh there, about $600 and then, but they also have the Philips, and they also have blue blocking inbuilt, which is really good. So they've got low blue light compared to the other damn monitors. And on top of that, they've some other kits. So key thing is trying to get all this. I'm also trying to look for a filter, like a screen filter for the evening, so I can actually just drop it over the thing and that clears everything. So yeah, still investigating that one. I'm not sure whether I'm going to find something that doesn't distort what I'm seeing on the actual, because that could be a case as well. That can be, you know. I do have one, which I've had people pay into my PayPal account that owe me money. But I've never used it on YouTube or anything like that. As I said, the whole idea was, when I set up the monitoring, was less to get money from you guys, more to get money from YouTube, because they've been putting commercials on my stuff, and you guys know, and you don't get anything until you get 1,000 subscribers plus and a lot of views. So that's how they operate. And even to get money out of them, they only give you like $100. So you have to actually accumulate $100, and there's some other thing, and then you can access your funds. So they're very much, you know. Now obviously, because of some of the actual stuff is monetized, some stuff will come through eventually from their account to my account. Well, that's what's supposed to happen anyway. But you know what YouTube is like, you know, they'll keep it in their coffers and then give it to you in drips is how they operate. It's the reason why a lot of other YouTubers are so frustrated with their payment schedules and the way they operate, because I was much cleaner in the past. And remember, I've got a day job, and so this isn't, I appreciate, people saying, have a coffee on me, Harry, or that. Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. But this isn't, but for Bart, it is. It's his day job. He does this on a constant basis every day. And if it wasn't for for some of the other things that he does outside YouTube, he would be really struggling. I mean, for a moment there, Pim had to go back to work. So, and they want to basically run YouTube channels and do consultancies and help people with very severe conditions. That's their focus. They don't want to basically be doing the 9 to 5 sort of standard thing. And I'm getting sick of it as well. I've got 5 more years until retirement when I hit 60, but it's still, probably for me, it's not as hard because I love my work, and it's not work where it's controversial. It's not as if I'm going to argue. It's not like either you do mapping in a really good way or you don't. There is no, one way or another way. That happens in nutrition because there's politics and interests and powerful elites that have got money that are trying to manipulate the data because they want to sell their kibble. But in mapping, I mean, everybody, we try and actually learn from each other for the best standards. And it's like physics, everybody's trying to get the best. That's the goal. And even business wants the best physics. Why? Because then they can create technology based on that physics. Fake physics isn't going to help them make money. So, but fake foods will, and that's why fake nutritional stuff does make money. So it's a completely different environment. And I better get off because I'm still talking. Anyway, thanks guys for being here. Appreciate it. And I will see some of you people later on tonight. And take care. And appreciate all the support and the banter. And we had a lot of good fun. And I really enjoyed Shell's spanking of those 2 vagoons. Oh, that was funny as. See yous.